All right, and we are live.
Great. Thank you so much, Dallas. Good evening. This evening, we are here for a neighborhood meeting regarding a proposed annexation and concept plan at the property located at 9308 87th Street. This property is in the southwestern part of the Longmont planning area, near the near the intersection of Airport Road and Clover Basin. Next slide. So in terms of our agenda this evening, I'd just like to welcome everyone here and thank you for tuning in. My name is Jennifer Hewitt-Apperson. I'm a principal planner in the City of Longmont's Planning and Development Services Department. With us this evening from the city, we have Phil Greenwald, who is our Transportation Planning Manager, Josh Sherman from Public Works Natural Resources, Mark Sampson with Longmont Fire, Public Safety, Nathan Jones-Meyer, who is also a principal planner in Planning and Development Services. And we also have Dallas Stiles, who is our digital live stream specialist, who is keeping everything running smoothly and ensuring that the live feed works smoothly, and we'll be handling the callers as well. From the applicant side, we have Jonah Weiss, Matthew Napier, Scott Booth, and David Thiessen. So in terms of overview and format, this is an informational meeting that's required as part of the pre-application process for major applications, such as annexations. No decisions are being made tonight. This is a live streamed meeting that will be interactive. City staff will give an overview of process and policy considerations. Then the applicant will provide more detailed information regarding the concept plan and general development thoughts on the development plan in the future. Once we've concluded our presentations, we will take a 5-minute break. And during that break, there will be call-in instructions on your screen with a phone number and a meeting ID for you to dial in. And you will get in basically a virtual queue to call in and ask questions. And once we come back from the break, Dallas will be letting you in one caller at a time. So this is an interactive live stream. So, we do have that calling component. We will be answering any questions that you have regarding this project in particular, and also about, city processes and policies in general as well. Once we've had our public comments and questions, we would then conclude the meeting and our contact information will be provided. Next slide. So I'd like to spend a few minutes discussing the process for annexations, as well as the comprehensive plan and our intergovernmental agreement with Boulder County. So the first step in our application process is a pre-application meeting between members of the Development Review Committee and the applicant. We've discussed required processes and application requirements. In the case of this particular project, that pre-application meeting was held last summer. So once a pre-application for an annexation has been held, we will schedule something that is known as an annexation referral, which we took to City Council on July 23rd. The annexation referral is not a public hearing per se. It is where City Council gives staff direction on whether we should accept and review an application for annexation. And they did that at their July 23rd meeting. Once the annexation referral is made, prior to the application being submitted, we require a neighborhood meeting, which is where we are this evening. So we are still in the pre-application process. We have not received an application. And so we can't, at least from city staff, we can't speak to the specifics of the application because we don't yet have one under review. So we require the neighborhood meeting before this formal application. Really, it's a way to allow staff and the applicant to understand community concerns up front so that we might be able to address them better as the application goes through the review process. So once an application is submitted, it's reviewed by the Development Review Committee, which is an interdisciplinary team that includes planners, a variety of engineering specialties, public safety professionals, as well as others as appropriate. people such as parks and such. Once we've completed this DRC review, the application is then reviewed by the Planning and Zoning Commission, who make a recommendation to City Council. The City Council then holds public hearings in accordance with state statutes and makes the final decision on all annexations. So during this process, there are 4 sets of notifications that go out. So this isn't the only time you'll receive anything from the city. This isn't the only time you'll hear from us or from the applicant. Our code requires that all notices be mailed to property owners within a 1,000-foot radius of the property boundary, and that signs are posted adjacent to all right-of-ways at least 14 days prior to a neighborhood meeting or a public hearing. So this was done for this particular neighborhood meeting. We would also require, following the neighborhood meeting, we require notification, both mailed and posted, for all of these when we receive an application, when we schedule the public hearing before the Planning and Zoning Commission, and then also when we schedule the public hearing before the City Council. So our goal is to make sure the public is informed at all stages of the process. So the other thing I'll note is that annexation applications do not contain the full development plan for a property. It's only a first step in the review process. We require a concept plan as part of the annexation, which essentially is an outline. It sets parameters for what the future development will look like. So things that we're looking at, such as development types, density, access point, potential infrastructure needs. There is an annexation agreement that is made between the applicant and the city that outlines all of the requirements. And then once the annexation agreement, if the City Council approves the annexation and the annexation agreement, the process would again start for future development application types. So preliminary plat, final plat, site plans, public improvement plans. All of those subsequent review processes go through similar notice requirements. So again, we try to be as transparent as we possibly can. Next slide. So for the project at hand, the current development proposal is for an 8.11 acre property indicated with a red star shaded in yellow on this particular map. It is in Southwest Longmont, north of Clover Basin Drive, south of Quail Road, east of Airport Road, and west of Fordham Street. The section of Quail Road adjacent to this property is actually a city-owned street. So the neighboring parcels that are currently under review for annexation, that portion of Quail Road is still part of unincorporated Boulder County. So there are some different considerations because there are 2 owners of that road, depending on which side of the dead end you're on. I've also, just addressing some things up front, I've received questions from some neighbors asking why this property couldn't access Airport Road directly. And the short version is that it does not have access to Airport Road. Specifically that triangular parcel that's immediately west of this particular property. It is not a city-owned property. It is owned by the Northern Colorado Water Conservancy District. So it's a completely separate entity from the city of Longmont. Further access wouldn't be possible there because we do have minimum spacing requirements between intersections and driveways, and that is something pretty important from a public safety standpoint. So, as we talk about a lot of our engineering requirements and transportation requirements, especially, a lot of what drives those, aside from efficient movement of vehicles and transportation, is public safety. That is the number one thing that we're looking at. Next slide. So this is a zoom in from the Envision Longmont future land use map. This particular part of Longmont does contain a mix of uses. The area that this property is located in is designated as a mixed neighborhood on the future land use map. And so this is the comprehensive plan for the city of Longmont and the Longmont planning area. So these plan categories apply whether or not you're in the unincorporated area or incorporated, but this guides the future development in the city. Next slide. So in terms of some policy history, Envision Longmont was adopted in 2016. In terms of the mixed neighborhood land use category, primary uses are residential uses between 6 and 18 units per acre. This density range allows for a mix of housing options and densities. It's intended to be in close proximity to services and amenities and serve as a transition between single family neighborhoods and higher density corridors, commercial areas, et cetera. So this section of mixed neighborhood is that transition between the larger lot enclave that's designated for single family neighborhood to the north and the higher intensity corridor of Clover Basin. Next slide. So this is the overall future land use map for the city of Longmont. I do think it's important to show because it illustrates Longmont's growth and development policies and strategies. It also illustrates really the limits of our planning area and our growth boundaries. So I'll note that all areas that you see in green, whether they're dark green or light green, are permanently protected open space that are either owned by the city or by Boulder County or some other entity. These permanently protected areas almost completely encircle the city of Longmont and really limits how far out we can grow. And that means that the majority of new development in the city is considered infill or redevelopment, which ultimately does result in more efficient development that's more cost effective to provide municipal services to. These open spaces do provide a clear boundary for the city of Longmont. So you don't have that blur of like, am I in, which city am I in? You're clearly in Longmont or you're not in Longmont. Within the city, you see some dark green, some green areas throughout the city. There's a perception that we have a lot of open space, a lot of available land for development within the city of Longmont. And the fact is we just don't. A lot of these green areas you see on the interior of the planning area are they're floodplains. And so they're areas that are permanently preserved. They are floodplains that were acquired as part of flood recovery efforts. And those are areas that will not be developed. They cannot be developed. One, because they do have this conservation status, but also most importantly, they're floodplains. The next slide. So one other thing I will note is that our planning area boundary is memorialized not just in Envision Longmont, but it's also memorialized in intergovernmental agreements with Boulder County on the west, Weld County to the east, as well as some of the smaller cities, including Frederick. So we do have intergovernmental agreements with other local governments that relate to our planning area. So one thing I'll note as well, Envision Longmont has these areas that identified areas of change. This particular area, as is circled in blue on this map, is considered an area of change. So next slide. Areas of change, in this case, is an undeveloped area planned for future development. They also are developed areas with potential for infill or redevelopment. So you'll see those throughout the city on that particular map that's within Envision Longmont. And all of these documents are available on the City of Longmont website. I'd like to also note that comprehensive plans dating back to at least 1995 have identified this area, especially this southern area between Quail and Clover Basin, have identified this area as one for future residential development. So it's been for at least 30 years on the books as an appropriate location for new residential development. Next slide. So Finally, the other thing I'll note, just from a larger policy standpoint, is that this particular property, again indicated with the red star on this map, is part of a larger county enclave. So this county enclave is within the Longmont planning area. It's also within what's known as a potential annexation area as defined by our intergovernmental agreement with Boulder County that is also adopted by City Council. The agreement specifically states that county enclaves within the potential annexation area should be brought into the city to ensure adequate facilities and services are provided and to ensure that future development is consistent with the goals and policies of the city. So this is a memorialized policy in this intergovernmental agreement with the county. So next slide. With that, I will turn the floor over to the applicant team.
Thank you, Jennifer. We appreciate the opportunity to be able to be here this evening. I am Matthew Napier with the applicant team, and joining me, as was previously mentioned, will be Jonah Weiss with LJA. They are the engineer and planner associated with this project. Ultimately, as you can see on the slide here, the project that we are bringing forward today for purposes of the conversation is 9308 North 87th. So it's the blue property on the screen. It is not part of 8902, which I believe had a previous application and has gone through neighborhood meetings. So we are here only to talk about the subject property, which is just over 8 acres right at the corner of Clover Basin and 87th Street. Next slide, please.
I can take it, Matthew, if you're okay with that.
Yes, sir.
So as Matthew mentioned, this is our parcel here. We are proposing single family homes. This may include duplexes and townhomes. It does not include apartment buildings. Our main access is going to be off of Clover Basin Drive. It'll be a shared access with the property to the east. And we'll have to have a secondary access someplace, and that could be Quail Road, or it could be through the property to our east. I guess, we are, as Jennifer mentioned, we cannot connect to Airport Road because of that Northern Colorado Water Conservation District parcel. Also, there's intersection spacing issues with that. So I guess with that, Matthew, do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, I think as mentioned, we are early in the process. I understand that this map doesn't provide a whole lot of detailed information. This is really for the annexation and the zoning portion of the project. The owner of this property, once this moves through the process, will engage with the potential end users, residential home builders that would come and actually build the homes on this parcel. But again, we're very early in the process today, so we don't have an end user in tow, because as of right now, the property is not annexed and does not have zoning. So we're just kind of working through this process. Again, we would be coming back for public hearings throughout the process if and when this moves forward.
I think
Thanks,
that's
Matt.
our presentation.
All right, thanks, Matt and Jonah. All right, so in terms of next steps, before we break for callers, the next step is receipt of an application, submittal of an application by Matthew and Jonah's team. As I mentioned, once we receive an application and it's deemed sufficient, a notice of application under review will be made. So another round of mailed notices to all property owners within a 1,000-foot radius, as well as signs on the property. Once the Development Review Committee has finalized their review and has made a recommendation, hearings would be scheduled first before Planning and Zoning Commission. And as I noted, they make a recommendation to City Council. They are not the decision-making body. on annexations. And then city council would hold a series of hearings, and they would take a vote on this particular applicant. That's what they are, the final decision-making body. So they would hold a public hearing and vote on the proposed annexation. If this property is annexed, as I mentioned, there are subsequent applications and review processes that would be required prior to any dirt getting turned. Next slide. So as I mentioned briefly at the beginning, subsequent applications would include things such as a preliminary plat, which is required if more than 3 new lots are being created, since some form of either attached or detached single family is being proposed here. It would require a preliminary plat, which would require another neighborhood meeting, as well as approval by the Planning and Zoning Commission. Upon approval of a preliminary plat, we would review a final plat, a site plan, and public improvement plans. And the public improvement plans would also include typically a public improvement agreement where we outline with the applicant, there's basically a contract between the applicant and the city outlining all of the types of improvements in terms of specific infrastructure needs, both on-site and any necessary improvements off-site that might be deemed necessary to mitigate any impacts of development. Once all of that happens, then we would be looking at building permits. So from start to finish, this is not a fast process. In terms of when you might see things getting built, realistically, it's probably going to be a couple of years. Because again, this is not a fast process, and we have quite a few steps and public hearings and such to get through before anything would be finalized. So next slide. All right, with that, we are going to shift into taking a break. Before we take that break and you get called in, we have some ground rules for public comment. First and foremost, every speaker gets 3 minutes. We follow the same rules as City Council, so 3 minutes per speaker. We ask that you state your name and where you live for the public record, just like you would do at a City Council meeting. We do ask that you keep your questions and comments related to the current proposal specifically. We also ask that you're additive and not repetitive. So if someone has already made the same comment or asked the same question as you, and you're welcome to say, my question's been asked, and or something of those lines. But we do ask that we respect everyone's time, but we also want to make sure that everyone's questions and concerns get addressed as well. So, and of course, be respectful of everyone. That goes without saying. So with that, next slide. All right, I will turn it over to Dallas to give the run through of call-in protocols.
Sure thing. So yes, it is now time to call in. You can see that number is on your screen. It's 1-888-788-0099. When prompted, enter the meeting ID 823-1411-9115. During this time, we're going to go quiet. We're going to be on a break. While you call in, you'll be put into our meeting. Make sure that you mute your live stream and listen to us through your device. That's where we'll be calling on you by the last 3 digits of your phone number to make sure that you can come on and ask your question or make your comment. With that, we're going to take a 5-minute break. Feel free to call in now. Thanks.
Thanks, Dallas.
We have about a minute left on the timer. If you are watching the live stream right now and would like to call in, that number is 1-888-788-0099. The meeting ID is 823-1411-9115. We do have some callers. If you are listening to me right now, make sure that you have muted your live stream, because when I call on you by the last 3 digits of your number, you're going to get a feedback loop if that live stream is going. So again, make sure that live stream is muted and keep listening to me and our chat via the device you're called in on. We've got about 10 seconds left, and then we'll start taking callers.
And I'll also add, we'll have another slide coming up next that has my email address on it. If for some reason you are in the call-in queue and you get kicked out, if you lose connection to the call-in, email me at the address on the screen, and I will let Dallas know to get you back into let you back into the queue.
Great. And with that, we will take our first caller. Caller with the last 3 digits 026. Caller 026. Please hit *6 on your device to unmute. Hello.
Yes. My name's Brian Harple. I live at 1025 Box Elder Circle, which is to the north of the proposed annexation. And my concern is does, on the one slide you talked about the secondary access, either off of Quail Road or through the adjoining parcel. And when you say secondary access, what do you mean by that?
Okay. Do you have any other comments or questions? We're keeping a running log of what people are asking, so we can kind of give comprehensive responses.
I wanted to know what that was. If we are with our small little enclave neighborhood, the traffic on Quail Road would just be devastating to us, and the entrance and exit off of Quail Road into this proposed access would just raise havoc with us, and the ability of people to continue on down Box Elder Drive and exit out through East Buckthorn neighborhood with the traffic and young people with kids and elderly people. It just does not bode well at all for that type of traffic through there. So at least I would like to see the same courtesy extended to this parcel as what was extended to the parcel to the east, where it is at least a gated entrance for that secondary access for any emergency vehicle or anything of that nature, which it looks like it would be more cost effective and serve the purpose much better if the access to this parcel came from the east parcel for the secondary access.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thanks, Brian. All right, we're going to go to our next caller. Caller with the last 3 digits of your number 076. Caller 076. Please hit *6 to unmute. Hello.
Hi there. Hello. This is Linda Bittner, 9455 North 89th Street in the Schlegel subdivision, which is immediately northeast of this property. Just as a reminder, this is an unincorporated subdivision within Boulder County, outside Boulder city limits. All of the roads, including Quail Road, are owned and maintained by Boulder County. As Jennifer noted, Quail Road, quote, dead ends just east of the intersection with Box Elder Drive. Quail Road was closed permanently by the Boulder County Commissioners in 1998. This was to resolve Schlegel neighborhood problems, primarily eliminating cut-through traffic, people avoiding the traffic light at Airport and Nelson, and excessive vehicle speeds in the neighborhood. The concept plan presented to City Council and the graphics shown tonight show the annexation of about 127 feet of Quail Road east of the closure. And my question is, what is the purpose and intention behind this annexation of a Boulder County road? I want to see Quail Road remain closed to traffic at the existing dead end and no traffic allowed to enter the Schlegel subdivision. The same request was made at the 8902 Quail neighborhood meeting. Allowing traffic into our neighborhood would result in a lot of problems, as we brought up before, risk of pedestrians who use the Dry Creek pathway and so on. I'm not at all opposed to development of this parcel and the adjoining parcel. I would very much like to see true affordable housing built on this property and built for ownership rather than rental. I was just reading about the proposed development at Calvary Church, which I think is a great example of what can be done. 32 homes on a 4.5-acre property, which is about 7 units per acre, all of which will be affordable to lower income people. I also want to see reasonable scale, density, and height of whatever is built on this property. To quote Envision Longmont, development abutting a lower intensity established residential neighborhood should provide transitions in massing and height. The homes to the north and northeast of this property are immediately or are single family homes, most of which are single story. Those in Schlegel are akin to the city's rural residential zoning where homes are on 1 acre of land. The typical townhouse neighborhood I see around town now is 2 to 3 stories in height. I find that incompatible with the existing neighborhood homes. I also have concern about the ground being built up for new construction. This happened with the Parks at Stonebridge, which is a townhouse development just west of the Schlegel neighborhood along Nelson Road. And that building up of ground caused expensive drainage issues for Schlegel residents. I also see apartments being constructed, like the ones just west of Target, where the foundations are a good 6 feet above ground level of adjacent homes. Lastly, I very much appreciate getting the notice of this meeting well before 2 weeks in advance. And I also appreciate that the owner of this property being willing to work with the owners of, or the developer at 8902 to try to get the best access possible to minimize the impact on our neighborhoods. And that's it.
Linda,
Thank you
you're
very
at
much.
3 minutes. Perfect. Thanks.
You bet.
Thank you. We'll go to our next caller. Caller with the last 3 digits, 684. Caller 684. Please hit *6 on your device to unmute. Caller with the last 3 digits of your phone number, 684. Caller 684. Please hit *6 to unmute. Hello.
Oh, hi, this is Jamie Myers. I live in the Westbrook Village subdivision at 3516 Box Elder Drive, and thank you for the informative overview. I really appreciate that. My concerns living in the village is I moved here 5 years ago because it's a very quiet, serene neighborhood, and everything around it, the surrounding neighborhood is the same way. So I was pleased to see that the developers are looking at doing single-family homes as well as possible duplexes. Townhomes, I do not feel fit really into the whole neighborhood scheme of single-family homes. So I would ask that you consider that, but I do think the single-family homes and the duplexes would work. And I know this may sound a little off the base, but I'm a big It's a Wonderful Life fan, and I'd like to see Longmont think about ahead, and I know Envision Longmont is looking ahead to everything, is thinking about when I think of It's a Wonderful Life, and I think about everything there, I always think about, let's build Bailey Park, let's not build Pottersville. So think about your neighboring surroundings and work toward that, please. The other thing that I would like to say is we have Quail Road, which is an extension to our neighborhood, and with increased traffic, that would be very problemsome because there goes our whole serene, quiet neighborhood. And I'm not sure if it would be possible for you to think of other alternative routes in and out of the neighborhood, because also I know our HOA, which we pay dues to, actually maintains that road, that Quail Road section coming in from Airport Road, helps to maintain that with our HOA dues in the wintertime, actually plowing it so we can get in and out. And maybe the city wants to take on that responsibility, or the developer, but that is another piece that our community has taken on themselves. So thank you.
Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you.
We'll continue on. Our next caller with the last three digits 762. Caller 762, please hit *6 to unmute. Caller with the last three digits 762, please hit *6 on your device to unmute. Hello.
Hello. Yes, my name is Keith Solt, and I live on Box Elder Drive at 3512. And I have several concerns about the proposed development, annexation. Like it's already been mentioned, Box Elder Drive and Quail Road have about an average of 12 cars in a 24-hour period. This development, if it was to exit on Box Elder and Quail Road, and if it included the development to the east, has a potential to have like 800 cars that could potentially come down Box Elder Road. And that's not the only problem. The other concern is people on Clover Basin can take a shortcut through that new development to Quail Road to miss the light at Airport Road. So they go on Quail Road, turn north to take a shortcut out, which would add many, many more cars. And like it's already been mentioned, we have about 12 cars a day go through this neighborhood with an average of 2 cars per unit, including the annexation we're talking about and the annexation to the east. That would potentially be about 800 cars that could come through. Thank you.
Thank you, Pete.
Thank you.
All right, we will go on to our next caller. Caller with the last three digits 833. Caller 833, please hit *6 to unmute.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes, my name is Jack Bamberg. I live on Quail Road, 3606, one of the 2 houses that is in that little short section of Quail Road in the city. And I am very concerned about traffic on Quail Road because, first of all, Quail Road was constructed as a very narrow street. If you have a parked car on one side of the street, then the road becomes one way at a time. It's really, it's so narrow that even parking at all is really a danger. I've had cases where I clear myself to go around a vehicle that's parked and then end up facing a car and almost had a head-on collision one day. That was right near Airport Road. I think that the road, the way it is right now, that belongs in the city, I don't think it's capable of handling much more traffic than we have now. So I think that that's got to be a serious consideration they couldn't make the road wider without taking property away from the pumping station. And so I don't know how to make it wider, but if it's the same as it is now, I think we've got a serious problem. So I'm concerned because if we do get a lot of traffic, I may not be able to get out of my driveway with all the people that are trying to get out onto Airport Road from Quail Road. I may find myself locked in, and that's very dangerous for elderly people if they might need to get an ambulance. We could be risking lives because the ambulances couldn't get to the houses. So that's my commentary.
Thank you, Jack.
Thank you.
All right, our next caller has the last three digits 055. Caller 055, if you would hit *6 to unmute. Hello.
Hello, my name is Deborah Lyford, and I live at 3527 Box Elder Drive. I'm very concerned about a number of things, but at the top of my list would be having Quail Road, the city portion, which is very short, become an access point for people who are entering and leaving the 8.11 acre area that's being discussed this evening, and also the larger area, the approximately 17 or 18 acres to the east. And if those people on that larger parcel are able to wind their way through the 8.11 acre parcel and then exit onto Quail Road, that is going to substantially affect in a very negative way the Box Elder neighborhood that consists of primarily older people, 65 to mid-90s. We do not have sidewalks or infrastructure to handle that. We have small front yards that border on Box Elder Drive. We would like the same consideration here that the Schlegel neighborhood got, and that would be to not allow anything but emergency vehicles, such as ambulances, to enter or exit onto Quail Road and Box Elder Drive. There's no good way to leave this neighborhood from Box Elder Drive. You have to wind through the Buckthorn East neighborhood. There's a little community park where children play, and this park would be right in the middle of the increased traffic, and people who are using the park would be at risk. I'm especially concerned of children from the Buckthorn neighborhood that would be placed at greater risk. I'm asking, will the city council or transportation division, whoever's responsible, give our neighborhood the same consideration that Schlegel neighborhood was given and not allow traffic to go on and off Quail Road or Box Elder Drive? I have some other questions as well.
Deborah, you're at 3 minutes.
I am?
Yes, you're at
I'm
3
out
minutes.
of time?
Yes. If you have further questions, you're able to message Jennifer. Her email is on the screen right now. But yes, thank you for your questions and comments.
Okay, I look forward to getting some answers, Dolly. We've given a lot of questions. Answers will be coming. Is that the deal?
Yes.
Yes, we will be responding at the end.
All right. We're going to go on to our next caller. Our next caller is 149. Caller with the last three digits 149. If you'd please hit *6 to unmute. Hello.
Hi, my name is David Kimmett. I live at 9536 Schlegel Street, Longmont. And I have a few comments on the proposal. I think one of the most important slides was the one that listed the key takeaways when Matthew Napier was speaking. And, you know, I definitely want to laud the proposal for this annexation, emphasizing duplexes and townhomes, but I'd like to know a bit more. Are the duplexes and townhomes an ownership model or a rental model? There's been a shift in American townhome and duplex and single family home construction over the past just a couple of years, where these are actual built as rentals as opposed to built as ownership. Longmont has a dire lack of entry-level home ownership opportunities. So I'd encourage the developer to focus on entry-level home ownership and go through that design review process, or go through that scrutiny process in plat review, I should say, for a parcel of 3 or more lots. I'd also like to encourage the city to contemplate a design review process for both this neighborhood and the neighborhood to the east, especially considering the unknown relationship between the two properties. I'd like to know more about how this property relates to the property to the east, and will Longmont enforce some sort of access model so that the proposed access off of Clover Basin and between the two properties will be mandated to both owners? Last, I'd like to encourage the city to think about the Northern Colorado Water Conservancy District parcel. I think it's an opportunity that's being wasted. A lot of that land, it's a strange triangular shaped piece of land. The building is only on one portion of it. Perhaps some sort of relationship, an easement, maybe even an eminent domain situation could occur, whereby access could be provided to airport through that Northern Colorado Water Conservancy District parcel to the south of their building. I know there's spacing requirements that are necessary on a road at the level of services airport, but I think that something could potentially happen. I feel for the people on Box Elder Drive and Quail Road within the city of Longmont and the proposed access. I'd like to encourage, or I'd like to emphasize the point that Linda Bittner mentioned about denying an annexation of Quail Road east of the existing fence and dead end. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Our next caller is caller 165. Caller with the last 3 digits 165. Please hit *6 on your device to unmute. Caller with the last 3 digits of your phone number 165. If you're there, please hit *6 to unmute. We will come back to you, 165. We're going to move to the next caller. Caller with the last 3 digits 221. Caller 221. If you'd please hit *6 to unmute. Hello.
Hello, this is Gary Cunningham. We live at 3609 Sunflower Circle. We are just to the south of the proposed plot or annex.
Right, go ahead, Gary.
I did hit *6. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. I am overly concerned with traffic on Clover Basin. We have a lot of traffic on this road, and I understand there's going to be some road improvements, but the concern that I have is down towards the the east side by the school building. I don't know the name of that school building, but I'll say it's east of Delia. That area, I don't know how it's going to get any wider. We continue to add lots of traffic on both these proposed annexations, as well as a proposed building site to the south of this area. And, you know, they continue to build to the west here. And so Clover Basin is just going to be overrun with traffic. I'm assuming the traffic engineers are making some adjustments. Hello?
Hello?
All right, 165, if you'll hold on for one moment, please.
Yes. Sorry, Gary. Let me get you back here. Hit *6 one more time. Don't worry, I've got your time paused. Gary, if you'd hit *6 just one more time, please. There you go.
Okay. Again, my concern is traffic, Clover Basin traffic. We have, I mean, today already the traffic backs up for over a quarter mile every evening. And we're going to add more outlets onto Clover Basin. And it's already becoming a speedway. It's 35-mile-an-hour zone. I wish, you know, people would maybe do a traffic study, because people go faster than 35 miles an hour already. We're going to add more people, more cars. I am not, I don't know how to say it. I can't support that. But I do support, you know, development, but I don't support overdevelopment and on a narrow road. I don't know what else I have other than traffic, Clover Basin. Okay.
Great.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Gary. We're going to go on to caller 979. Caller 979. If you'd please hit *6 to unmute. Hello.
Hello, Jim Vandegrift here, 3528 Box Elder Drive, Westbrook Village. My neighbors have done a very, very good job of placing all the questions that I was going to ask. So in the interest, again, of not being repetitive, I'll just go ahead and drop off. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Jim. Absolutely.
Thank you.
We'll go on to caller. I think we actually might have just lost our last caller. Caller 885, if you are still watching the live stream, you can feel free to message Jennifer and we can get you back in. But otherwise, I know that we have 165. 165 also just left. Okay, so yeah, that was our last caller. Unless either of those two want to come back in and have questions or comments, but if they are answered, yeah, or have been asked, I think we're good for you guys, Jennifer.
Okay, great. So I am going to just do a quick overview of kind of the big areas of questions and comments, and then I will just turn it over to the appropriate subject matter experts for each one. Key questions are Quail Road access, traffic are big ones, the unit type as far as single family versus duplex, whether it would be owner or rental occupied. Let's see. Yeah, the big ones really are going to be the traffic. There's also the question about potential Clover Basin improvements and how that would be addressed. I will say the caller who mentioned the design review process, we do have residential development standards, so which get into having a mixture of materials, having various roof line changes. So we do have residential design and standards as part of our code that we would be looking at. They typically are specific to a development, so that's something that we will be looking at, though. With that, I'm going to let Matthew and his team speak to some of the concerns that were raised. And then I have Josh Sherman and Mark Sampson and Phil Greenwald on, who can also discuss specific requirements as it relates to access points and potential road improvements as well.
Yeah, thank you, Jennifer. Right off the bat, I just kind of wanted to reiterate. So, Jonah and I are here representing the seller, the owner of this property, who ultimately will sell his property. He is not the developer. Jonah and I are not the developer. So I understand there's a lot of questions pertaining to the product itself. Unfortunately, we are very early in the process to be able to hone in on what a specific product would be or look like. We are only operating within the confines of the zone district and what that zone district allows. That is where, it's the on the Dallas, if you could pull up our presentation, the second slide, it might be beneficial. You'll see on this, it's the mixed use RMN. It allows for a range of densities between 6 units per acre and 18 units per acre. Based on that, a home builder would come in, and based on those densities, that's really what would allow you to see some kind of a duplex and or a townhome product. Again, no apartment buildings are being contemplated on this parcel. There was the question on owned versus rental. So fee simple lots would be the ability to sell the lots individually, generally speaking. And again, we're not the developer here, but generally speaking, my expertise over the last decade plus, I've worked for numerous publicly traded home builders, Richmond American Homes, Tri Point Homes, Century Communities. I've also worked for developers as well. A fee simple lot is the ability to go and like buy a property. Generally, for rent products, I think a gentleman had mentioned that there's been a shift and that there's homes that are built for rental communities. Again, I'm not the expert on that per se, but I do not believe that they pursue fee simple ownership, because fee simple ownership is for you to be able to peel off and sell individual lots and or houses. But again, we're not the builder. I do want to again reiterate that. So the idea would be, once the zoning is in place, the owner of this property would be able to work with potential builders to come in that would say they want to pursue a duplex product or they want to pursue a townhome product. We don't have specific lot widths or depths or anything like that. It's just kind of the annexation for the RMN zone district. I think there was a comment about raising the site. There's, I guess, some other developments that have raised their site. That wouldn't be financially feasible because the site balances and it is a flat site. To come in and raise that, it would cost a lot of money to import the dirt necessary to raise that site, and it would likely make the project unfeasible from a cost perspective. Let's see, Jonah, I think there's probably some other ones that you can jump in on I took some notes here, but if there's anything that you want to answer.
Sure, we can talk a little bit about the access on Quail Road. I know there were a lot of questions about what a second point of access means. And the short answer is we don't quite know yet. It could be limited to emergency vehicles. That's something that might work. It may not even be necessary if we can access through to the east and get our second point of access there. We're again early in this process, and there's a bit of a city review that has to happen and some work there before we can establish what those access points actually look like. I believe another caller had a question about how and if the city would enforce the shared access on Clover Basin Drive. Our understanding, the applicant's understanding, is that the city is requiring us to share an access with our neighbors. So if we want access on Clover Basin Drive, which we need, that'll have to be a shared access point. Is there do you want to talk a little bit about traffic, Scott?
I'd be happy to. So in reference to the traffic, we've kind of gone through preliminarily, we're looking at, what could this site have? What's a likely development scenario? We've utilized the data that comes from the ITE, which is the Institute of Transportation Engineers. They help us to generate what we think the traffic is going to be for a site. For this site itself, if it were to develop more dense, would probably be looking at about 600 trips per day. So that's 600 trips over a 24-hour period. During the peak periods, like in the morning, it's estimated at 37 trips. In the PM, it's estimated at 45. And that's people who are coming in and out. So overall, traffic-wise, this site with the proposed densities, even if it's a more dense product, doesn't generate a significant amount of traffic relative to what's already existing on Airport Road and what's existing on Clover Basin Drive. And that's not to say that, any additional traffic is always something that is an increase, but we're lurking, we're studying, we're looking at what the impacts might be and what can be done to mitigate those impacts. And those are things that will be studied as we go forward.
Great, thanks, Scott. So I'm gonna ask the city's engineering staff and public safety staff to discuss some of the requirements as well. So I will kick it over to Josh and to Phil and to Mark. So yeah, start with Josh.
I got my camera on. Good evening, everyone. Josh Sherman, civil engineer with Public Works. I'll try to reiterate a couple of things that have been said and then maybe address a couple other questions that I heard. A couple things to reiterate, as Jennifer opened up with, but I still heard, I think, a few questions relating to this. Access onto Airport Road, due to, again, the classification of Airport Road as an arterial street, intersection spacing, etc. There's no consideration at this time for any new access onto Airport Road from this parcel or through the Northern Colorado Water Conservancy District parcel. It is true that to gain access to Clover Basin, there'd be a public right-of-way access at the shared property boundary, so the east side of this subject property and the west side of the neighboring property, so that we can consolidate access points onto Clover Basin. And so that would be their primary access onto Clover Basin and their only single access onto Clover Basin. We are early in the process with regard to the adjacent property and where they are in the process and their formal development application. So again, they're sort of just one step ahead of this application in the sense that they're currently have made one formal submittal of their annexation proposal with a concept plan. And again, concept plans are inherently high level and don't always have a lot of detail. They are, as the applicant mentioned, primarily for to address the zoning. So we don't have a clear picture just yet on what access through that site may look like in the east-west. And I wanted to also then maybe address a little bit of comments I heard about Clover Basin. We had some similar comments, concerns about Clover Basin and the traffic on Clover Basin with the adjacent property in that neighborhood meeting. So first things, the expectation is this subject parcel would need to dedicate any additional right-of-way that would be needed for any improvements on Clover Basin, whether that's widening or multimodal, et cetera. And we are looking at, with the next annexation next door, what traffic calming measures would need to be implemented along Clover Basin to be able to safely handle the additional traffic while also mitigating the speeding concerns and just sheer volume of traffic in that area. What that's going to look like right now, we don't know. Again, we're still going through that review process with the adjacent parcel, and then similar to the work that's being done next door, this development application will be required to submit a traffic study. They'll be required to do some traffic counts on the adjacent roadways, and that'll give city staff and the applicant team the data to be able to make decisions about what is required for any roadway improvements or accesses. Another question I think I heard, which was the clarification maybe of the applicant's exhibit. So it's not the city's intent to annex any portion of Quail Road that's currently under the Boulder County stewardship of public right-of-way. So that's not the intent. And that'll get cleaned up when they make a formal application, and we can work on that. Let me go through these notes and see if there was anything else that I may have missed. Otherwise, I may turn it over to Phil and he can add on to anything I had to talk with regard to transportation and safe streets.
Could you touch on Quail? One of you touch on Quail Road as well? That section that's city owned.
Oh, sure. Quail Road, as well as Box Elder Drive and the other local streets, are city-owned, publicly owned right-of-way. Regarding snow removal or snow plowing, the city's policy is that we plow snow on arterial streets and collector streets, so roads like Airport Road, Clover Basin, etc. We do not plow on local streets unless it is a significant storm event and we're given direction from the city manager's office and council to do that. So typically we do not plow snow on local streets. At times that does leave HOAs or other folks to do that work if they so choose. So I think that might have been a comment that was provided.
Thanks, Josh.
Thanks for the reminder, Jennifer. Yeah.
Yeah. Phil.
Yeah, real quick. My name is Phil Greenwald. I'm the transportation planning manager for the city. And I just wanted to say for the team, really how appreciative we are of this input that we're getting from everyone through this process. So thanks for all your questions tonight. And I heard some that were very much about safety. So I wanted to just quickly answer the idea that the city is actually working on a Vision Zero policy right now. And so that is the idea that we don't want to see any deaths on our roadways ever. And so our vision is 0 deaths and serious injuries on our roadway system. So when you talk about Clover Basin specifically, we look at that and we say, really great input about lowering the speed limit, or that the speeds may be too high and that we need to maybe work on some enforcement techniques in that area as well. So we take that to heart and we listen to that, and we are moving forward with a Vision Zero task force, and anybody on this call or anybody in the city is welcome to join that group. Just look up Vision Zero task force on our website, and you should be able to get some links to that information, really help us look around at different areas of the city, including this portion, as far as safety concerns. So we appreciate that. One of the things that Vision Zero doesn't want to look at, again, is lowering speed limits. And I think with the improvements that we're talking about for Clover Basin with these 2 developments, we'll get the sidewalks, and there'll be wide sidewalks on the north. So, and we'll have access to the bus system that runs currently on Clover Basin and on Airport. So we'll have better access to the buses. So many of these folks who are moving in will have really great access to the transit system, as well as the folks that are already there. So we're hoping that the transit becomes better as well. We're working on that. And so hopefully people can get more access to that. But we recognize people will drive. So just again, we will work on that, and we hear your concerns. And so thank you for those.
Thank you, Phil. And Mark, if you'd like to talk a little bit about the access in terms of what you require from an emergency standpoint, I think that would be helpful for folks to hear.
Certainly, no problem. Thank you, Jennifer. Mark Sampson, Assistant Fire Marshal, City of Longmont Fire. any development with more than 25 dwelling units requires 2 points of access. And it has to be spaced half the diagonal of the overall lot dimension. And so, unfortunately, this parcel does not have enough spacing across Clover Basin, and the spacing to airport will not allow another access off of Clover. Thus, the shared access point from the 8902 Clover Basin annexation. So that's why that's shared. Then the second point of access has to be separated, like I said, by half the diagonal. So it has to come off a quail. And it has to be a full movement. And that's in the interest of public safety, responders, and emergency personnel. We can't just have a single point of access off of Clover Basin for this annexation. So they can increase it to 50, but they have to up their sprinkler system, and they have to equip all the units with the fire protection system, automatic sprinkler system. Any questions?
Yeah, and those, I will add that those types of details as far as sprinkling and such are things that we would not be looking at until we get much farther down the road of the site plan process. At this point, we're really looking at conceptual, the conceptual plans, including entries, and the general entries are based on our city engineering standards for driveway and access spacing, but also for the requirements that fire has, that public safety has, to get into a development. Ultimately, I know there's a lot of trepidation about access onto Quail Road, but ultimately that could potentially give folks who live on the north side of Quail Road another way for emergency vehicles to access that development. So we don't, as a policy, we don't want to cut off any we don't want to cut off any access and isolate neighborhoods and not have connected neighborhoods. Ultimately, it benefits all the surrounding neighborhoods and not just the one that's being considered. So let me see. I just received an email, Dallas. I don't know if you would be able to open the queue. There was a gentleman, last three digits 885, who has been trying to get into the queue for comment, and he wasn't able to get in.
Sure thing. Yes, that was our last caller. So, caller, if your last
Okay,
number
great.
is 885, I'm going to throw up that slide again. Give me just a second, and you should be able to call in. All right, caller with the last three digits of your phone number, 885. This is the number you'll need to dial in, 1-888-788-0099. And you're going to be prompted to enter that meeting ID, 823-1411-9115.
Thanks, Dallas.
Yeah.
Let's see. We'll give that caller another few seconds to get in. Otherwise, if your questions haven't been answered, feel free, you can email or call me or the applicant representative as well. Let's go ahead and put that contact information up there, Dallas.
Hey, Jennifer, can I say one more thing?
Sure.
I did have written down, and I apologize, I glossed over
That's
it. But
okay. Yeah.
one of the comments that I think was made was about the affordability. I do know, and I do want to at least state that throughout this process, as we've been going through the pre-application meetings and going through this process, we have been discussing with the staff at Longmont the affordable requirements for an application to move forward. So that is something that this project is going to do, is going to meet the requirements that Longmont puts forward for applications to meet the affordable components.
Yes, and so related to that, I'll just add on. Longmont has an inclusionary housing ordinance, which we're pretty at the forefront of that. So our inclusionary housing ordinance requires that 12% of the units being developed either be designated as affordable, like permanently affordable units on site, or there's a fee in lieu calculation where a developer can basically pay the city a fee to be determined that would go into an affordable housing fund for building affordable housing. So we do have a few different mechanisms to satisfy that. On-site is always preferred, but at this point, it's a little too early to know exactly how that requirement would be satisfied. Just there are a number of considerations in there. Looks like our caller has gotten in. Dallas, if you want to let him in.
Sure thing. Caller 885, I see you just joined us. I've asked you to unmute. If you'd please hit *6 to do so. And make sure that live stream is muted in the background, and that you're listening to us through your device. Hello. Caller 885, can you hear us?
Yes. Hello.
Perfect.
Great.
My name is James Beckman. I live at 9682 Schlegel Street. And I just kind of wanted to echo, it sounds like there's a lot of concern with traffic being routed through lower traffic neighborhoods right now. And I have the same concern. And I'm sure there's a solution out there that can work around that, through that, but generally not through the Quail, and it sounds like also not through to Box Elder, which I have biked and walked in that neighborhood quite a lot, and I agree it's a very low traffic. So if there's an easement that can go over the water district or the triangle to the west or to the east with the other annexation proposed development, seems like a better solution at this point. That's my biggest concern from what I see at this point. I do like the fact that they're proposing duplexes, townhomes, single family. I also would like to go on record with saying I really like the idea of something like cottage homes, and whatever goes in, I really hope that it is something that people still enjoy and is beautiful 50 years from now, and just does not add more development for the sake of enriching others that don't actually live there and are not putting roots down in the community. And that's about it. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you so much. I did see there was another caller. I will say that this particular caller we let in because they had dropped off and emailed me. So at this point we are closing the lines, but you have our contact information on the screen. So I will just to reiterate regarding the water district property and why we cannot use that. One, the city does not own the property, first and foremost. Second, and the developer does not own that property. The second one is we do have spacing requirements between the intersections. Josh, could you elaborate on what that specific spacing requirement is? I can say that the eastern, on the Clover Basin side of the property, that shared access, it is pushed that far to the east because of that minimum distance between intersections that are required in the code. So trying to put any additional, so I'm being told 660 feet. You have to have 660 feet between intersections, driveways on arterials. So adding an access onto airport, if it were even possible, we wouldn't allow that because it would be not even come close to meeting our spacing requirements. It's also not safe for all modes of traffic. It would have safety ramifications for not just cars, but also pedestrians and bicycles as well. So there are very important reasons why we have those spacing requirements, and it all boils down to public safety. So with that, I think we've addressed most of the concerns or questions at this point. Ultimately, we're looking at public safety as well as, development compatibility. That's why we have members of the public safety. We have the assistant fire marshal on the development review committee. So we can make sure those concerns are addressed and those requirements are met. But also at this point, annexation is getting the property into the city at this point and identifying what the zoning would be. So at this point, there aren't as many details, but we definitely hear your concerns and appreciate those concerns as well. And just know that as this project moves through the review process, there will be a traffic study required that that Mr. Booth will be working with our city traffic engineers to establish the parameters and what that will look at, what they'll be required to do. So we have a long, there's a lot of work to be done, and you have our contact information. So with that, Matthew or Jonah, do you have anything you'd like to add before we close? And also if any of the members of our city team would like to jump in, if you have anything else to add as well.
Yeah, we just wanted to thank everybody for taking time out of your evening to join us. This is something I've been involved in this process in Longmont multiple times before. I was a part of Harvest Junction and Sugar Mill projects when those moved forward. So we've worked through this. As Jennifer said, it is a very long process, and our goal is to work very closely with the neighbors as well as the staff to ensure that this is a good project when it's all said and done, and it moves on to the builder or developer is going to come forward and push this project through and actually build the homes. So please feel free to send in for any additional comments or questions that you have. Jonah's contact information is up here. We will take all of that and hopefully be able to do whatever we can to put this into the later phases of the project once we can get the annexation into Longmont.
Great. Thank you so much, Matthew.
Thank you, Jennifer, and everyone who was able to join us tonight. I appreciate the feedback and responses.
Great. Thank you. And with that, Josh, Phil, Mark, do you have anything you'd like to add before we close?
I got nothing. Thanks, Jennifer.
All right. Thanks so much, Mark. All right. Well, on behalf of the city of Longmont, I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in this evening and calling in with your questions. As I've mentioned, our contact information is on the screen. So feel free, if any thoughts come up after the fact, feel free to reach out. We'll get you pointed in the right direction. This neighborhood meeting live stream has been recorded, and the recording is available on the City of Longmont YouTube channel. So if you have any neighbors who weren't able to tune in, they can always watch the recording. And with that, as I mentioned, this is early in the process. We're still at the pre-application stage. So the next step would be submittal of an application. And with that, I would like to thank everyone here this evening, both on the community side and then also Matthew, Jonah, Scott, and David on the applicant team side, and Josh, Mark, Phil, and Nathan and Dallas, especially on the city side. So thank you so much, everyone, and hope you have a great evening.
Good night.
Thanks all. Have a good evening.